Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast.
Today I'm joined by Gregg, CEO of AmbioPharm. Brian's leading the company through a pivotal moment in peptide contract manufacturing. The company has just completed an expansion in Shanghai. They're preparing to break ground on a mirror facility in South Carolina, and they're building their reputation around pioneering work in hybrid synthesis. Today we'll talk about what hybrid synthesis actually unlocks for peptide development, why AmbioPharm is betting on mirror capabilities across 2 continents to build supply chain resilience, and how Brian's thinking about carving out a distinct position for AmbioPharm in a crowded and rapidly evolving market. Brian, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Pleasure joining me, Dawn.
So let's start with you for a second. What drew you to AmbioPharm? What did you see in the company that made you want to lead it?
So I've had a very long career, spent my entire career in the peptide CDMO industry. And what I found particularly attractive with AmbioPharm is that the company has both solid phase and liquid phase peptide synthesis capabilities. And also combining those 2 approaches to peptide synthesis to be able to deliver hybrid synthesis capabilities for peptides for both clinical development and commercial manufacturing. So this was particularly attractive to me because it's ideal for long, complex peptides. It's also really a big advantage if the peptide is going to be needed in large volume. And it's, in the end, it's very scalable, highly reproducible, and can give significant reduction in COGS when you get to a large scale batch size. What I saw with AmbioPharm was really an opportunity to provide value to the industry, of course, with this hybrid synthesis know-how and capabilities, and especially when it came to innovative peptide drugs that were going to be needed in large volume for initial launch, but also when products that are already commercialized, that there's a need for a generation 2 process post-approval to be able to meet increasing demands and also a need to reduce COGS.
And so you've spent your entire career in peptide manufacturing. What is it in general about the space that keeps you interested?
Yeah, it's at the start of my career, synthetic peptides were really very much a niche therapeutic. And there were very few peptide drugs that were commercially launched. The volume requirements were very low at that point in time. It was in the hundreds of grams, maybe into the low kilogram per year requirements. The need for peptides was mostly in clinical development and not commercial manufacturing. I did have the good fortune to be able to contribute to the manufacture of exenatide for both late stage development and commercial manufacturing. And that one, meaningfully, that is really the very first GLP-1 that was approved at that point exclusively for type 2 diabetes. And so that was going back into the early 2000s. And what was really exciting for me in my career was to see that class of drugs, GLP-1s, really had an impact on weight loss. And of course, we all know now, it's just exploded. And to see that this application of GLP-1s has really had a significant improvement on patient outcomes, on the lives, the quality of life for patients is actually fantastic, including people I know. It's very rewarding. With all of the follow-on incretins, you've got now the dual agonists, the triple agonists. They promise additional benefits above what GLP-1s alone offer. And just how could you not want to continue to be involved at this point with really this explosion with the weight loss and drugs? It's just phenomenal.
It must be really interesting to see what the peptide manufacturing space used to be very small and niche to now actually holds such a large sort of market share of the drugs overall. We'll touch on GLP-1s a little bit later, but talk to me about AmbioPharm as a whole. So it's evolved significantly since its founding in 2005, including the spin out of its generic peptide drug business into Ambio. Can you walk us through the company's journey? How has its focus developed over time?
Yeah, and I'll talk mostly about the post-spin out because that's really when I joined AmbioPharm. The generic and the peptide CDMO companies became two separate entities. And then I joined the company shortly thereafter. And what I've really done is to prioritize our sales and marketing effort really on innovative peptide drugs. And within that space as well, really focused on late phase and commercial projects. Of course, I've already talked about this excitement for me, which was the ability to do hybrid synthesis, really leveraging that differentiator of AmbioPharm. That our hybrid synthesis process development, manufacturing know-how, our experience, our capabilities, really using that as our go-to market approach with customers, innovate, and in particular, those innovative drug product companies. And one thing that has really benefited us is that Lilly has done a lot in terms of publishing its successes with hybrid fragment-based approaches for tirzepatide. And it's become something that other companies who are developing GLP-1s or further incretins, that they are well aware of. And so for those companies who are aware of what Lilly's been doing, they have similar complex peptides, they require large volumes, they are actively seeking CDMOs that have hybrid process development manufacturing capabilities and services. What I found is we've really won opportunities because of our eagerness and excitement to take on these hybrid process development projects and to do the subsequent manufacturing. That's not something that is uniform within the peptide CDMO industry. So what we've been successful at doing is demonstrating proof of concept with a hybrid process, demonstrating that the results that we are able to achieve with this hybrid approach, that we have improved yield compared to traditional linear SPPS, solid phase peptide synthesis approaches that are more common in our industry. And then with that proof of concept being demonstrated, we really are able to rapidly progress from pilot scale to manufacturing scale. So with these successes that we're having, we really are able to build our reputation particularly with innovative drug companies. And we're becoming really recognized as the go-to peptide CDMO for hybrid synthesis.
Tell me more about that then. What does hybrid synthesis actually mean technologically for the layman like me? And what doors does it open for a drug developer?
Yeah. No, the hybrid approaches, they're particularly beneficial for long peptides, GLP-1s in particular, but not specifically for those. And the traditional linear SPPS approach really involves building a peptide one amino acid at a time through one coupling at a time on a insoluble resin. You get into longer peptides like GLP-1s, which are 39 amino acids in length. You get to regions in those sequences where couplings become difficult. The growing peptide chain on that resin, starting to fold back on itself. So it's very difficult to access the free amine, which is what you need to couple the next incoming amino acid to. And so this results in, once you start getting beyond maybe 15, 20 amino acids in length, you end up getting very complex impurity profiles with missing amino acids, or even what we refer to as truncated sequences, so shortened sequences. Instead of being 39 amino acids, maybe you're only at 20, 22, 23 amino acids. These impurities, they reduce yield. They also make your purification effort extremely difficult. So with a fragment-based approach, what we do is we take that full-length peptide, and let's just use GLP-1 as an example, typically 39 amino acids in length. We go ahead and break that peptide into multiple shorter fragments, so shorter peptides. And our target usually would be 3 to 4, maybe 5 different peptides. So you're building the fragments of that entire peptide as individual protected peptides. And these shorter peptides can result in, if you really target the development of these processes for these fragments, to give you higher quality, higher purity, higher yield of each one of these fragments. Then you take these multiple fragments, the 3, 4, or 5 fragments, and you join them together in liquid phase, what's commonly called liquid phase peptide synthesis, and you join them together. And the concept is that gives you higher yield, higher quality peptides, crude peptides, than what you can achieve with a more traditional linear SPPS. And this then really makes your purification effort of the full-length peptide significantly easier. You have a much less complex impurity profile, so easier purification means less time, less effort. And if we combine that less time, less effort for purification, along with manufacture of fragments in parallel, what we're able to do is not only give a more reproducible, higher quality product with lower COGS, but we're able to condense timelines also. So from start to finish, we've got reduced timelines for delivery of peptides. So it's really a great benefit to going with this fragment-based approach. Because in the end, what we can do, we can deliver larger volumes, we can do it more quickly, lower COGS, and this opens the door for development of peptide drugs that only a decade ago would not have been considered practical or viable, and would have most likely have been killed as potential drug candidates. So I'm really seeing that it's starting to open the door to the development of peptide drugs that you're going to need in larger quantities, larger volumes. It's opening the door for drug development companies and pharmaceutical companies to really put the resources into developing those peptides.
That really is fascinating. But this isn't a capability that I hear many CDMOs talking about at all. How did hybrid synthesis become something you decided to build your reputation around?
Yeah, that actually was a really easy decision for me when I joined the company, because what I did know is that during these years, probably the last decade and a half to 2 decades before the introduction of tirzepatide, the peptide CDMO industry was making really big investments into traditional linear SPPS. And that was both in terms of hardware, the steel, and also the people and the know-how. And so the result of this is that the peptide CDMO industry in general is very motivated to steer customers to linear solid phase peptide synthesis and really to align with the capabilities and the capacities that they have, which is understandable. And with this recognition, it was really clear to me that the opportunity for AmbioPharm was to focus on offering hybrid fragment-based as an alternative and really creating this as a clear differentiator for AmbioPharm compared to the competition.
That's really interesting. And I understand there's a sustainability advantage as well to hybrid synthesis that you brought to the market. That's also not something I've heard much about. Tell me about that connection. How does your manufacturing approach tie into environmental goals?
Yeah. These traditional linear SPPS processes, they're really highly inefficient. They have what is referred to as a high process mass intensity, or PMI. So PMI is a measure of the efficiency of the conversion of raw materials into final product. And it's pretty basic, pretty simple way of determining that. You simply add the mass of all of the raw material inputs. So that would be solvents, reagents, amino acid derivatives, and total the mass that you're putting in and dividing it by the mass of the final resulting finished product or final API peptide. So as an example, the PMI for your typical 39-mer GLP-1 peptide manufactured by linear SPPS is going to be something in the range of 20,000 to 30,000. So you put in a lot of materials, you get a very little amount of peptide out. Now, if we were to take that same 39mer and manufacture it by AmbioPharm's fragment-based approaches, the hybrid approach, you'll generally have a 3 to 4-fold reduction in PMI. So that's a really meaningful reduction in PMI compared to the linear SPPS approach. And this significant reduction, of course, it significantly improves sustainability. This is really something that is particularly attractive to our customers, especially the large pharma, the global pharma companies, and it helps them to achieve their environmental sustainability goals.
That does seem like a no-brainer, really, for companies, obviously, as
Yeah.
ESG requirements are becoming more and more center stage. Let's switch gears a little bit. You just completed a expansion in Shanghai, and now you're replicating that exact design in South Carolina. Tell me about the thinking behind that mirrored capability on 2 continents. What problem are you trying to solve for the customer?
Yeah. We designed and built this new manufacturing capacity in Shanghai really in order to provide this state-of-the-art capability for the SPPS, the LPPS, and the hybrid synthesis capabilities. We had an aging facility that we really needed to move out of and move to a state-of-the-art facility. And we also had customers with growing short-term demand that simply the older facility was not able to meet those requirements in terms of capacity as well. We do, of course, see that there is a desire for full U.S. manufacturing. What we are doing is we're replicating that state-of-the-art SPPS, LPPS, and hybrid synthesis capabilities at our South Carolina site. And the intention is to be able to allow seamless tech transfer and move the processes that we have developed and moved to scale up to commercial scale, manufacturing scale in Shanghai to be able to do seamless tech transfer of those processes over to South Carolina. Really, what this replicated capability in South Carolina is able to provide to our customers is the ability to mitigate supply chain risk.
Obviously, it is a very uncertain period for pharma manufacturing. So how are you helping customers think through these sort of geographic decisions? What conversations are you having?
There clearly is a need to mitigate the geopolitical exposure that comes along with manufacturing in China. With our particular focus on late stage and commercial opportunities in the innovative space, that of course is our sweet spot, really. And many of our customers actually already have alternative suppliers. So they are able to manage the exposure, at least for a short period of time. Although there is certainly an acceptance of a manageable exposure by them for the benefit of enjoying AmbioPharm's hybrid synthesis advantage, it is important to our customers that we are making progress. We're demonstrating progress with the addition of the commercial scale hybrid synthesis capabilities in South Carolina. So with that, we are expecting to have our synthesis capabilities fully operational in South Carolina by the fourth quarter of 2027.
Are you seeing different needs from emerging biotechs versus established pharma companies when it comes to where they want their manufacturing to happen?
Certainly. And what we see with really these clinical development companies is that they do have greater concerns regarding manufacturing in China than we see with the established global pharma companies. How we are attempting to position this is that, and it's the reality of the situation, is that manufacturing in the US and China is actually very appealing to global pharma and the customers that we currently have that are the global pharma customers, because they view it as really allowing supply nodes that can supply not only the US and European markets, but also increasingly the important Chinese market.
Are you making long-term investment decisions when, with all this uncertainty, when it feels like the ground is shifting back and forth every few months. How do you plan in this environment?
We had a pretty tough decision to make in the first half of 2024 between installing commercial scale hybrid synthesis capabilities, the new capabilities at our Shanghai site, or shifting that capital toward a similar investment in South Carolina. Ultimately, we already had a building in the Shanghai site that was earmarked for the scale synthesis. And this, coupled with lower investment costs necessary to complete this shell of a building, to install manufacturing capabilities there, again, lower cost, but also faster timeline. We talk about it, particularly with our colleagues in China, about China speed. It's something they're very proud of, that things can be done very quickly in China. And because of the lower investment cost up front and this China speed, we did make the decision to invest in Shanghai first. And this also, it just allowed us to meet the immediate capacity needs of our customers, because we could do it much quicker than we would have been able to do it if we started off in South Carolina. Now, having completed that investment in Shanghai, the decision to invest in South Carolina is very easy. There is clear demand for U.S. peptide, full U.S. peptide manufacturing. And we also know from discussions with our customers and what their demands are going to be, that we do expect to hit full utilization of our new capacity that we'll be putting into South Carolina within 3 to 4 years of bringing that manufacturing on.
Let's circle back around to GLP-1s. As you were talking about earlier, they really have impacted the entire peptide manufacturing landscape. Massive capacity investments, new players entering, everyone's chasing the market, it seems. You're in the middle of it. How has that affected AmbioPharm as a business?
Yeah, required that AmbioPharm, the leadership team, that we've had to think outside of the box. We are not like any other peptide CDMO. And I've already spoken extensively about our differentiation with respect to hybrid synthesis. But what's also very unique about AmbioPharm is that we have established footholds in both the US and China. And while our presence in China may be viewed merely as an exposure by many, we recognize it as a clear advantage. China is rapidly becoming a very important source of drug innovation. By some accounts, we're hearing that China has accounted for anywhere between 20 and 30% of all drug development worldwide as of 2025. That's second only to the US, which accounts for now about 40%. And this share of the innovative drug development coming from China only appears to be growing. So what our presence in China is allowing us to do is to give us the unique opportunity to partner with peptide drug innovators in China, which there are plenty of them. And what we're able to do with those Chinese drug innovators is to demonstrate that having manufacturing capabilities, development and manufacturing capabilities in both China and the US can help these Chinese innovators really to enhance their value story. Because, and we've seen this already play out, that these innovators can make deals, license out their products to US and European companies, and then these companies can quickly and seamlessly transfer manufacturing from China to the US and allow them to very quickly proceed with clinical development activities outside of China. So clear enhancement of the value story for these innovators.
And what is happening in the peptide world beyond just the blockbuster obesity drugs that maybe isn't getting enough attention?
Yeah. I think I already alluded to this. The success of GLP-1s has really changed the paradigm about what can be a viable peptide drug. And again, those drug candidates that previously would not have been considered feasible, they're now on the table. Clearly, metabolic diseases outside of obesity continue to be a strong area of focus. You have MASH and NASH and type 2 diabetes still are important areas. But increasingly, we're seeing development efforts in oncology, endocrinology, diseases, autoimmune diseases, and arthritis. Those are really some areas that we've seen with our customers, some very good opportunities, spaces where they're developing peptide drugs. So in my view, I really see that we're going to see this continued boom in peptide drugs.
So if we fast forward then maybe 5 years, what would you want AmbioPharm to be known for? What's the reputation you're building towards?
Yeah. So I think I've already made it pretty clear what I see our reputation being built as in the innovative peptide drug spaces as the go-to CDMO for hybrid peptide synthesis. And we've already discussed the ongoing efforts to add commercial hybrid synthesis capacity in South Carolina. Now, with that, what we haven't discussed is how we're adding that capacity in South Carolina. We're doing this in a very fast cycle time. And with our presence and our experience in China with again, what I'm calling China speed, we are looking to leverage that by employing a prefabricated modular build approach for our new facility in South Carolina. This modular fabrication of the manufacturing facility will actually be done in China. And that will be done in close collaboration with our engineers in the Shanghai site. This modular fabrication approach allows us to complete the South Carolina expansion project within a 2-year period, which is very quick if you compare it to a more traditional stick build approach, which can take 3 or more years to be able to do design and build on site. Out of this, what I expect is that this commercial hybrid synthesis project in South Carolina demonstrates AmbioPharm's ability to add capacity quickly and compared to our US and European competitors more quickly than what they can do. I also anticipate, based upon what our forecasts, our long range forecasts are looking like with our customers, is that we're going to have to do further peptide manufacturing capacity expansion in South Carolina within the next 5 years. So that being said, I have a clear goal that I want to be recognized not only as the go-to peptide CDMO for hybrid synthesis, but also as the go-to peptide CDMO for fast capacity expansion in the US. And ultimately, with that being recognized as a key contributor to what all of our ultimate goals are in pharma, which is bringing innovative peptide drugs to patients.
Sure. I look forward to tracking AmbioPharm's movements and seeing how that develops. Thanks a lot, Brian, for talking to me today about this. It's been really interesting.
Thank you, Dora. I really appreciate the time.